So do we want to start? I guess I will introduce myself. I'm still the acting chair of the PAC because I've been for about a year, and I guess I live in the Bluemont area of Arlington, and I guess I've asked people to share a goal that they would like for the committee to achieve. I guess a goal for me is I'd like to grow our committee. Our committee is rather small, and I'd like to bring in some more members and more folks that have a passion for pedestrian issues, and are part of the eyes and ears in Arlington as far as what's happening. So with that, I think I will move on to Pam.
Hi, Pam Van Hine, the recording secretary for the PAC. I live in Aurora Highlands, also where Amazon is. It's a very busy neighborhood. And I agree with Eric's wish. We need more members, and we need the members that we have to be coming as much as possible and participating. So that's it.
All right, we'll go to Eric Malpelli, and I see John Armstrong is on too.
Yep.
Hi, Eric Malpelli, member, live off of Langston Boulevard. Share the goals already mentioned, and also seeing Plan Langston Boulevard seen to fruition, including the pedestrian elements.
Great, thank you. I'll go to John Armstrong. And John, if you could introduce yourself, the kind of civic area that you live, and then if you could share one of the goals for this committee to achieve that you would like to see.
Okay. Hi, John Armstrong. I live in Lime Village, Clarendon area. I'm a member of the PAC. I agree with Eric. I think a great goal is to grow the committee. So I would actually suggest maybe we carve out some time in a future meeting to talk about recruitment, ways to get the word out. I heard by word of mouth from a neighbor who was on the transportation committee. But I'm not in marketing, so I'd be curious kind of what ideas people had or how we can do that. A general goal, I think, is just safety, but accessibility. Just continuing to kind of work for that infrastructure so that people can safely walk all over the county and complete daily tasks in a safe environment. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. So we'll move to, I guess, mostly staff and other folks here, but we'll go to Lauren Hassel.
Hi, you guys. I think I know most of you. I'm working with Mary these days in Bike Arlington and Walk Arlington world, and I live in Ballston and have done so for about 25 years and seen a lot. And I see that a stretch of Washington Boulevard is still in the fair to poor section of walkability, which is why I got involved in walking in the first place back in the day. But anyway, I digress. My goal would also be to increase membership, but I think in a targeted way of kind of looking at civic associations. Maybe this has been done before, and PTAs or the Civic Federation, the CCPTA, because those are people who are already active and aware of issues. So that might be a way to do it strategically.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Mary.
So I'm Mary DeLau, and I'm with Walk Arlington and Bike Arlington, and with Lauren, who is just like a gift to me to be working with her and having her support and help and talents. So yes, and I have the same goal. I love this committee. This is I like these meetings. I think you all are great. And I actually feel bad that you all are so dedicated, and you shouldn't have to be worrying about recruiting people. And I wish we could figure out what the secret formula is to get people. I think a lot of times people just don't even know these committees or these groups exist. that like a lot of people, if I ever mention them, they've not heard of them, regular Arlington people. So yeah, like I'm on board too with trying to help and not make it a burden. Cause like, yeah, Eric, you've been doing this for a year, very like graciously. And it'd just be nice to get new people and more support.
Yes, and that in turn will help our committee be more effective. So that's
Right.
good. And we have some folks who, and I won't even name them, who are like super committee members, and I hope to be able to share some of the things that we do with other folks that also have a passion for pedestrian issues. So, all right, David.
Sure. I'm David Patton. I'm a bicycle and pedestrian planner in the Division of Transportation, and I've been staff liaison to this committee for more than 16 years now. And I very much share that idea that it would be great to spread our membership and raise the profile of the work you all do, because it's very good. And as it happens, we have a session in this meeting coming up to talk about exactly that. As we've been kicking it around, and we came up with the idea, well, let's create a brochure and let's have the committee take a hand in crafting the message. You know, what is it that brought you here to do this? What do you find important? What are your priorities? What can you do to help sell this engagement to others? And to me, it's pretty clear, but I don't live in Arlington. I've worked with the county for quite a long time. This committee gives you direct access to policymakers, gives you direct voice in budget priorities, gives you a direct voice in legislative priorities, gives you direct access to staff all across the county's infrastructure, the county administration. So I won't go on any further right now because we're going to talk about it a little later in this meeting, but I'm very happy to see you all again, and we'll move on.
All right, very good. And our first speaker, but I'll let you. We'll continue with introductions. Is Max, and I hope I pronounce your name right. Is it Ewert?
Ewert.
Ewert.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Max.
no problem. Hi everyone, my name is Max Ewert. I'm an associate planner with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and have been the project manager for the Gateway Park project for a year and a half now. And I'm really excited to kind of we are at the third and final engagement within that park master planning process. I won't jump away from your prompt. I don't live in Arlington, but I grew up in DC and still live in DC. So I don't own a car. I am a pedestrian and a bicyclist first and forever. And so a goal for the region that I would have, not for the PAC specifically, is just to do whatever we can possible to mitigate deaths and serious injuries for pedestrians and cyclists on our streets. And I appreciate the work that you all do to help make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you like me to jump straight into the project, or?
Yeah. I don't think we have any public comment at this point. So yes, if you can start, tell us about where we are with the final draft concept design plan right now. That would.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of background first on what the process has been like, and then I understand that a goal is to kind of go through the presentation for the final engagement, and I'll share my screen to do that after that, or after I give my update.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, we started the engagement process. So the park master planning process started in January. That was when we brought on field operations to do the park master planning and design work for Gateway Park. We started off with an existing conditions analysis, which included previously approved plans, both broadly, like the Realize Roslyn Sector Plan and the Public Spaces Master Plan, as well as approved site plans for surrounding developments around the area, and other important information that dictates kind of how the site already exists today. We use that information to kind of inform the first engagement, which we started in April of this year, where we had kind of a broad scale, high level visioning exercise, where folks in the community were able to provide feedback on what they would like to see in a future Gateway Park. We use the feedback from the community to kind of inform the second community engagement, and that second community engagement was where the field operations team developed 3 conceptual designs, and those designs were intentionally differential. Like, we wanted them to be as kind of the scope to be as wide as possible, because the goal of that second engagement was not only to identify things that folks really liked about what could be in the future of Gateway Park, but identify things as well that people don't like in Gateway Park, so that we're able to pick and choose the best elements of each of the 3 conceptual designs for the final concept, which we are at now with the third engagement. And so the third engagement, we have 1 final conceptual design, and we are still in the comment period. I put the link to the public comment in the chat. I'm going to do that again so people have access to it. And in that includes the video that we're about to watch, as well as it's a very brief questionnaire that kind of, the goal of this one is more so to get a sense of like, all right, we've heard you through these 2 engagements, and we think we have found some sort of middle ground that addresses the needs of everyone who's kind of given us their voice. The nature of these projects is that because there are so many people kind of giving their input, it's impossible to make everyone 100% happy. So there will be elements that folks like, there will be elements that folks dislike, and this is your opportunity to kind of say if you feel as if something is just completely out of the question, or if you're super supportive. Both would be, either or would be helpful for us as we kind of get into the final months of this project. As part of the last couple months, our goal is to go to the county board for the park master plan approval in December. And then after that will be the design development phase. The design development is when we get into the nitty gritty and see exactly where things are going to go. It's a more robust budgeting process to make sure it's in line with what's been allocated in the CIP for the park. And then construction is planned for 2026. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and we can watch the video for the third engagement. There we go. All right, I'm going to full screen first. Let's watch on YouTube. If folks are not able, we're going to get an ad, folks. I appreciate everyone's patience.
Hi, Jira. We brought you here today.
All right.
Hello and welcome to the third public engagement for Roslyn.
Can folks hear that?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. I'm going to press play, and I'm going to be quiet.
Gateway Park. For the last 9 months, we've been working closely with our partners at the county, the Roslyn bid, and the Arlington community to develop a new future for Gateway Park. And we couldn't have done that without you. Most recently, over 700 community members shared their thoughts and feelings on 3 distinct concepts for Gateway Park. Over 100 of you showed up in person to our second engagement back in June. During the month of July, we met nearly 120 of you at local events, and almost 500 of you shared your ideas via our online survey. Feedback on the 3 concepts has been invaluable, and as we have synthesized them in one vision for Gateway Park, we want to make sure we got it right. First and foremost, Gateway Park should be a park for the everyday. It should be a park that celebrates nature, supports community events, and is safe and connected to the nearby neighborhoods and trail networks. Now, as always, there were some favorites, like how the Roslyn Ramble excited the community the most. But with each concept, pros and cons were expressed. A majority of people didn't like the idea of sports courts at Gateway Park. There was a concern that too much planting could feel unsafe. And although the many events at Gateway Park are a part of its identity, people felt that the park should not exclusively be designed as an outdoor performance venue. People did love the dog runs, and specifically spaces for both large and small dogs. The woodland playground excited many young families in the area, and the new pedestrian bridge was understood to not just be necessary to safely cross from the west to east side of the park, but was thought to also provide an elegant gateway into Roslyn. So we've been busy sketching and testing ideas based on the feedback we heard, and now we have a much smaller, multifunctional lawn right next to play spaces to better support family-friendly gatherings. We further developed the Potomac Ledge to not only provide sound buffering, but to shape shaded, intimate spaces, to mitigate grade changes, to support universal access, to provide seating, and to integrate storage in public restrooms. And we've not only increased the size of the dog run, we provided 2 separate areas for both big and small dogs to enjoy. The draft final concept plan is the culmination of our time together with you, developing a park for the everyday, one that provides safe access from the north and west across Langston Boulevard and Fort Myer Drive. You can see that at number 1. A park for the every dog owner, regardless of your dog size. You can see the dog runs at number 2. A park that celebrates nature with pollinator gardens at number 3. And at number 4, outdoor spaces that support community, fitness, and leisure. At number 5, a park for children with 2 distinct play areas. At number 6, a park that functions for its users with restrooms located near the play areas, the flex lawn, and the Custis Trail, not to mention the nearby future boathouse. A park that has spaces for gathering in the shade, whether under a pavilion at number 7 or in a grove of trees at number 8. And lastly, one that's not only visible from the Key Bridge, but provides bike stations for those commuting up and down the Mount Vernon and Custis Trail. We want to take you through an animated walk of the park, beginning in the northwest corner where residents from North Highlands might enter. The elevated path is supported by the Potomac Ledge to the left, with the large dog run below. A perch view of all our furry friends enjoying a day in the park, while just to the south is a generously sized small dog run. Now, the dog areas are not just a destination, but they're integrated into the design of the park, surrounded by shade trees with ample seating opportunities, all while creating a wonderful place for our best friends to stretch their legs. For easy access, we provided 2 double-gated entrances into each area from the perimeter and interior sidewalks. And these spaces are larger than the dog runs that exist at the new Met Park and the temporary dog run on site today. The dedicated large dog area is now nearly 8,000 square feet, while the smaller dog area is right around 4,500. And one can begin to imagine the ribbon cutting day for Gateway Park, with dogs and their owners enjoying an afternoon in the park. Just to the south and east of the dog run is the pollinator garden, with a meandering garden walk that connects to a series of garden rooms. And number 1, spaces with social furniture to support small neighborhood meetings or meetups. And number 2, a game room for the more playful park goers. And number 3, a lounge room to take in a little slice of nature. And lastly, at number 4, a fitness room for those interested in a bit of exercise, perhaps before heading out for a run or ride along the Custis Trail. Not only do the gardens provide a critical ecosystem for pollinators, they offer spaces to celebrate community, spaces to relax, to play, and to exercise. Spaces for impromptu performances or yoga, spaces for the everyday.
I apologize.
Crossing from the west to the east side of the park, you fly over the pollinator gardens as you cross Fort Myer Drive and look down over one of the woodland play spaces. Spaces designed for multiple age groups with a variety of play experiences. A hill slide, a rocky outcrop, swings, wobble boards, a timber mountain, and a log jam climbing feature, all located adjacent to the nearby public restroom. Moving from the south to the north, we pass by the outcrop and the hillslide, We're moving under the new bridge and past the swings, the wobble boards, and the timber mountain, and arrive at a play space specifically designed for children 2 to 5 that is both safe and challenging with playful logjam features and woodland huts. Now passing through the flex lawn and to the southeast corner of the park, we visit the shaded social grove, an area to sit, relax, perhaps enjoy a snack from the nearby restaurants, or take in the daily happenings in the lawn, or maybe an exercise class under the shade of the pavilion. An area that as the seasons change within the park, so do the community performances and events. The pavilion provides all-weather shelter for a variety of daily or annual events, while the storage and restrooms provide some of the necessary functions for the park and the nearby trail network. The flex lawn has been right-sized at 19,000 square feet to function for the everyday, but still be just large enough to continue to support the programming that already exists at the park today. And zooming back out from the lawn, you can see once again in our overall plan, the dog runs, the pollinator gardens, and garden rooms, the bridge, the play spaces, the lawn, the pavilion, and social grove, places that together compose an extraordinary new destination and community-focused gateway into Roslyn. Now that we've taken a walk in the park, I'm going to take you through some of the larger systems and networks. Like the circulation, did we mention there was a 30-foot elevation change from the west side to the east? That elevation change greatly influenced how we were able to safely develop a network of paths, sidewalks, and bridges that connect the community to the park and the park back to the community, either through elevated bridges or at-grade sidewalks. And while this circulation network is able to connect to the existing bridge across Langston to the north, a new and improved connection could utilize the existing ramp and stairs and more seamlessly integrate with the park. Here you can see that connection, as well as the new bridge that allows people to safely cross Fort Myer Drive, enhancing the gateway effect of the new pedestrian bridge. The planting for Gateway Park will begin on the edges by creating a cohesive identity along the streets, transitioning into the park with lush pollinator gardens and a textured canopy. Inspired by the plants of the Potomac Gorge, we're proposing a diverse canopy of native trees with coverage that not only meets Arlington County's forestry requirements, but also shapes a series of distinctive and shaded landscape rooms. Environments that are tuned to program and use, including gorge planting at the dog runs, pollinator meadows throughout the gardens, bedrock terrace planting along the Potomac ledge, which helps define planting along the park's northeastern edge, and lofted groves along the park's southern edge. These environments will bring health, habitat, and sequester carbon, and we will support them with healthy soils and appropriate drainage so that they can thrive and grow into beautiful, majestic, mature landscapes with plants that are seasonally dynamic and ecologically rich, creating habitats that invite pollinators into Gateway Park and help support these critical ecosystems. We're also thinking about the experience of Gateway Park at night, and through the selection of dark sky fixtures, Gateway Park will protect and restore the natural night environment, all while providing uniform lighting for not only safe but comfortable spaces.
Throughout our community engagement for the Gateway Park Master Plan, we've heard your concerns about the importance of safe pedestrian access, particularly given the park's location near major roads and in hearing the firsthand experiences the community has had accessing the park throughout the engagement process. We share your commitment to improving safety for everyone visiting and enjoying the park. While the Park Master Plan focuses on enhancements within the park's boundaries, we want to assure you that efforts to improve pedestrian safety around the park are underway. County departments, including DPR and DES, in collaboration with VDOT, are actively studying and working on solutions to improve pedestrian safety. Our park design incorporates features that enhance safety and access within the park itself, but improvements to adjacent streets and intersections will continue to be addressed through these collaborative, ongoing initiatives, including but not limited to sidewalk improvements from adjacent development projects, the Boathouse Project, Vision Zero initiatives, recommendations made in the Custis Trail Study, and projects coming out of the Core of Roslyn Transportation Study. We encourage you to stay engaged with these projects as well, and we appreciate your continued feedback on the park's design.
Whether you're stopping by for a quick doggy play date, strolling through the pollinator garden, or crossing Fort Myer via the pedestrian bridge, Gateway Park has so much to offer. You might even stop by for one of its many fitness classes on the green. Or perhaps you're there to meet up with family and friends to celebrate the 4th of July. We hope you feel Gateway Park has found the right balance. A place for the everyday, a place to connect, relax, and enjoy with your fellow neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate your patience with that. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any question that folks may have. I understand that there are likely going to be pedestrian access specific questions in this, and I'll do my best to kind of address those as well. But yeah, I cede the floor.
All right, I see Pam has her hand up here first, so let Pam, I guess, ask a question.
Okay, I did review the video last night, and I studied the PDF, and thank you for all that. And I have a whole bunch of questions, but I'll do them in little batches so other people can join in. My first set of questions is about the new pedestrian bridge, which is lovely. I think it's a great improvement. I'm not sure how you access it from both the west side and the east side. Am I correct that on the east side, it only comes down to one point? On the south side, there's no other exits off of it?
Yeah, that's correct. So how the bridge is designed right now is designed to kind of, I think I had, I'm going to try and pull up the PDF so I can kind of draw on it a little bit while I share my screen.
Yeah.
I know it's somewhere in this document.
It's linked to the survey.
I got it. Yeah. Thank you again for everyone for their patience. All right. Are folks able to see my screen again?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, you are
Yes.
correct, Pamela, that the bridge kind of goes in this direction from the northwest across towards the east and then down wrapping around to the south. And there's the main reason for that at this point has to do with the change in elevation for the park. The way the park is at its highest elevation in this western side, and then the northeastern corner is where it's at its lowest. So it kind of slopes down in that diagonal direction. And what is good about this design in a functional standpoint from like the materials perspective is that it is relatively flat and able to maintain ADA accessibility by doing this kind of circuitous route. It is not the most direct route, but it is able to maintain that 5% grade necessary for ADA accessibility by doing this circuitous route. So that's the kind of like the logic and the reasoning behind that.
Right. I find it unfortunate that you cannot access the bridge from the east side when you're closer to the north side.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that's a high elevation, but it would be nice if there was some way to do that. And on the west side, so there's 1, 2, 3 connections, is that right?
3 connections up to what?
To the bridge. There's one in the corner, the far north west corner, southwest
Mm-hmm.
corner, and then one that basically duplicates the old existing bridge. And are there any others? Is there one from
So in this, the points where someone can access it are kind of in this direction. They
yeah,
can cross over from the Custis Trail in this direction,
right.
and then they can come up the ramp from this direction in the south. Those
Okay,
are the
It
kind of,
okay.
is I just wanted to ask, where you down there where you have the little circles 2 and 3 down there, does that rise up to make a connection as well? Just a little, yeah, right.
no, so this circle is kind of underneath the bridge
Not
here.
that, it's the wider path.
This one?
No, if you move over to your, I guess to your,
Southwest
s-
corner.
s- yeah,
Here?
yeah, the one that comes from the
Yes.
southwest corner, does that connect to that as well?
That does connect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
Okay.
wanted to ask. So it's relatively flat when you get down in that area that you can make those multiple connections there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Hmm.
thank
But
you.
again, there's no access on the remaining corner to get onto the beautiful bridge. You would have
Um,
to either go to the west or basically go to the west and get on it.
yeah, or from the southwestern corner of the east side.
Oh, you have to cross the street, yeah,
Yeah,
which kind of defeats the purpose of the beautiful bridge.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and you did say it's fully accessible, and that's nice.
Yep.
And how high are the highest parts above the surface that they're going over?
Yeah, so there are some VDOT minimums that we're
Right.
required to meet going over different services. It's different for trails and roads. I believe it's about 20 feet for roads, and we are
Okay.
compliant with that at this point over Fort Myers, over North Fort Myers Drive. And then I believe it's somewhere between 10 and 15 feet in the
Okay.
spaces where it crosses over the pathway and the different rooms.
And how wide is the whole bridge thing?
Um, I don't know if there's an exact width right now. Again, this is conceptual, but I believe
Yeah.
it's just kind of standard width for walking paths, which I think is in parks there the trail standards are like somewhere between 16 and 20 feet, I think,
Oh, okay, okay.
or maybe 12 and 15 feet. I could be speaking out of turn on that, but I can confirm that for you.
Well, that is something we'll care about down when you get to the details.
Yeah.
But it sounds like people will be able to pass each other, even if they're on bikes or in wheelchairs or whatever. It'll be fairly
Yeah.
comfortable.
Bikes.
Okay. I'm going to let other people ask questions, and I have more questions. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, I guess I raised my hand. I wanted to ask, is there any opportunity in the future, what you said with further development along, I guess, Langston Boulevard eastbound to potentially connect another bridge or connection that we're sort of losing right now out of
Yeah.
there? Because crossing Langston there, it's 3 to 4 lanes. And there's a fair amount of traffic that moves through that area. Just wondering if there is a future opportunity to kind of tie into that bridge at some point.
Yeah. So I will say that a lot of what this plan is doing is kind of responsive to existing plans for this area. Um, and what we've been able to do, short answer is right now is no. And the reason for that is because the approved site plan for the development over here um, calls for removing the pedestrian bridge. So the developer already plans to remove the bridge. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. I'm trying to make it go away. Oh my goodness. Um, the developer is planning to remove the bridge, and that is what our design is kind of responding to. What we through this process, we've seen just how, in my mind, essential pedestrian safety is to the success of this park. And because of that, we've pushed really hard to include the new bridge crossing over North Fort Myers Drive and then maintaining the old the existing bridge that is on the that crosses over westbound Langston. Both of those were in long range master plans and sector plans were called to be removed. And so I I think it is a little unfortunate that we aren't going to be able to maintain the pedestrian bridge crossing eastbound Langston, but because that is connected to the private development of that site, um, for this project, we're mostly just responding to that rather than kind of having a chance to dictate it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I just
David
raised
has
my
a
hand.
question.
Yeah, I have a couple of different sorts of questions, Max,
Mhm.
not specifically pedestrian safety related. One, has this project already gone through, or does it need to go through a NEPA process?
Like environmental
Yeah.
protection analysis.
Right.
We did a structural analysis report as part of the existing conditions report back in, I think we started that in like October, maybe September last year. And as part of that, there was a environmental analysis that was done
Okay.
as part of that structural analysis.
And I think it's likely that because this is not going to be federal money, that's a federally regulated process. So I think you get to avoid the bulk of that. And speaking about money, wasn't there a relatively large contribution recently from a Roslyn developer that helped to supercharge this schedule?
Yeah, that's correct. So when this was initially, when we were initially starting the planning process for this, the idea was to do the park master plan as one park, because that's what it is. However, the construction was going to have to be done in phases. The plan was to do the eastern side first, and then probably going to have to wait anywhere from 6 to 10 years to do the western side. However, when I can't remember the office tenant that came in to the view of Roslyn or the view of DC in Central Place Plaza in Roslyn, they petitioned for the county to remove the community benefit that allowed for the public to get up to the penthouse suite and see a view of DC from that building, so that they could use it for their offices. And in turn, they essentially paid out what would have been the public benefit to a separate public benefit, which ended up being for the construction of this park. And so what it is allowing us to do is, instead of having a phased approach where we would do one side of the park, wait in an indeterminate amount of time, and then finish the other side of the park, we were able to do construction all in one go and address the whole park at once.
That's some creative wheeling and dealing right there.
I was very surprised when they told me it was happening. So,
right. Two more things, if I might. One, this is a densely active area with complicated plantings. I've been to some projects that Field Operations has designed. So what is the maintenance aspect of this going to be like? Is there a new increment of staff or new increment of funding to keep this in good shape for the long run?
Yeah, so Field Operations has a standard recommendation with their parks that is a dedicated like 2 years of maintenance, and we're planning to try and figure out how to follow that recommendation. And we're planning on doing it through our existing staff that we have, that our P&R staff, Parks and Natural Resources, that do a lot of the park maintenance in the county. And then we're also planning on partnering with the Roslyn bid, who has been a partner on the engagement throughout the duration of this process so far, to work with them to kind of figure out a staffing and maintenance schedule that is able to achieve the goals and recommendations that Field Operations provides once they have once construction for the park is already done. So yeah, there are a lot of maintenance considerations. One of the big ones being that this is on top of a highway, and
Yes.
that is hard to maintain. So yeah, we've been working really closely with field operations, obviously through the conceptual design process, and throughout that, we've kind of made sure to like, okay, don't let your eyes get too big. We want to make sure that not only are we delivering a park that is like really nice and able to meet the needs of the community, but is also something that won't just look pretty on day one, but will look pretty 2, 5, 10, 15, 30 years down the line as well.
Right. And if I might squeeze in one more comment, not really a question, just I'm looking at these plans and sort of responding to what Pam said about the pedestrian bridge being pretty high up in the air as it leaves the east side of the park to cross Fort Myer. And understand about keeping the whole bridge deck at ADA levels. But if you keep the bridge at ADA levels, it does not preclude having an auxiliary set of stairs that could take you up to the bridge. So perhaps something in the northwest corner of the east half of the park could be another access point for able-bodied people who want to take the adventure of climbing 20 feet of stairs and getting up from that side of the park. Just leave it there. So
yeah, I think that's a wonderful recommendation, and we'll definitely take that into consideration. I appreciate it.
I second that. Can I ask a couple more questions real fast?
Of course. Doesn't even have to be fast.
Well, yeah, it does, because I'm supposed to talk next.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be that long. Can you talk about how pedestrians and bicyclists access it from the east, whether they're coming from the Mount Vernon Trail or from Georgetown over Key Bridge, and what the connection might be to the boathouse, and where is the boathouse going to be?
Yeah. Wonderful question. So I'll tell you what I do, because when I come over here, I usually ride my bike over the Key Bridge, and cross my fingers at some points, but usually by the time I get to the Custis Trail, things are good. So when I ride my bike down, I typically will ride on the western side, crossing from Georgetown, and hug this side of the road. There is one, I'll say, squirrely intersection where it's kind of an exit onto GW Parkway northbound that I don't love crossing, but I do it. I hold my breath, get across the street, and approach here. And this is where we've been kind of coordinating close with our DES colleagues. There are ongoing plans for North Fort Myer Drive and the kind of adjacent sidewalks that are to connect the Custis Trail into Roslyn through a like a multi-use path along the western edge of the sidewalk on North Fort Myer Drive. And so that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of, I mean, the Custis Trail is an obvious reason why we have a lot of bike infrastructure, bike repair stations within the site, but two specifically on these corners on the side of North Fort Myer Drive is a kind of response to those plans to have the bike trail kind of extend or like take an off-shooting path southbound and into Roslyn. So that would probably be the primary connector. And then moving to the east, so actually, because there's two elements to the boathouse, which is currently they are seeking they have the RFP out for design firms. There are two elements for the boathouse. The first is going to be the kind of obvious one. It's going to be where the boats are stored, the house for the boats. But there's also going to be some administrative elements to the boathouse as well. That's going to be closer to Gateway Park, catty corner from the northeastern corner of Gateway Park is where the kind of boathouse kind of administrative and potentially restrooms. I'm not entirely sure what all is going in there. Structure is going to be located. And so access to that will just be kind of similar to how the Custis Trail transfers into the Mount Vernon Trail.
Mhm.
And
Okay, thank you. That is helpful.
and I can add something. You're probably already aware of this, Max, but at the Key Bridge, we have counting technology on the Key Bridge. The east side of the bridge carries twice as many bikes and pedestrians as the west side, which I'm sure you know because you're a daily regular user. But that will increase it. It will require increased attention on that corner of Lynn and Langston.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I'll add is that part of this project has been a multi-jurisdictional aspect of it. We are not only working with our typical county departments that we work with when we have a project in the county, but we're also working with VDOT, who maintains the roads surrounding Gateway Park. So like those are who we have to kind of advocate and push for when we want to do more with pedestrian safety regarding those roads specifically. We are dealing with National Park Service. This plot of land right here to the north of the Custis Trail is the National Park Service, as well as the GW Parkway and the Key Bridge. So there's a lot of different kind of
Key Bridge is DDOT.
Key Bridge is DDOT. Oh, DC Department of Transportation.
Right.
There you go. So yeah, there's a lot of different folks that we're interacting with in this project, and it's been frustrating at times, but it's been nice to kind of get a sense of where everyone else stands as well.
Right.
I forgot one little question. Oh, sorry.
Okay. I have one small little comment just with regard to this, and I do appreciate your time. We are running a little late. On number 6, right there where the lounge room is, that path and the other kind of central path which cuts across the west portion are very close to each other. I would just wonder if their elevation is close, are we going to have people cutting through back and forth as a shortcut just because they're right next to each other, and a lot of people don't like to walk on a circuitous route if there's a shortcut.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I find personally in my experience as a park planner that you kind of have two options to react to stuff like that. You can either just try your darndest to make sure people don't do it, or when the people are telling you that this is a path that they want, you provide them a path that they can use safely and that isn't negatively impacting the environment. So that's something that we're going to look closely at. Maybe it's an element where we can kind of incorporate these Potomac ledge structures in so that it's, if people really want to cut through it, it's not like they're stamping on planting material, they're stepping on a rock or something like that. Not explicitly designed for it, but it's safer and more appropriate than what otherwise would be.
All right, Pam, and you have a quick
quick question. Did you get rid of the food trucks?
So we are considering food trucks. We would never, the idea was never to have them for like a permanent use. The idea was mostly giving space for them for events. We are looking at ways that the Social Grove can do that. And that includes kind of ways to provide infrastructure for those, electrical outlets, stuff like that. But it's something that we're considering, but is not definite in the plans just yet.
Okay, I thought it was a great idea.
All right.
Thank you.
And Mary has her hand up as well.
Just a quick one. Do you have any guess as to when it might be complete? I see that construction's projected to start this like summer of 2025 already, which is fast.
So it would be 2026 for construction for this. Design development would begin in 2025. Completion, I have never had a park be completed construction of parks that I've worked on in the county. So these are typically longer projects. I don't think it would be too long, but it's something that I can follow up on. If we have like a rough estimate, I'm thinking what it's going to be is like a year of construction, maybe less than that. I'm not entirely sure. But I'd just be guessing right now.
I'm just curious because I always have a sense that these things take very, very long. So I didn't know how a park, compared to some other things like 5 years, 10 years, 2 years. But I don't really need to know precisely. I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to be in the 5 to 10 year range. I'm fairly confident about that. But I'm curious too, so I'd love to see my projects be completed. So I'm eager to find out as well.
Well, Max, I want to thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
to update us. I think we're still going to continue to push based on the comments that we sent to the county manager to try and follow and make certain that the crossings around the park are improved and safer. But we really appreciate your answers and your tour of the park, the proposed park here. Thank you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I appreciate your advocacy, and thank you for having me. I'm gonna put my email in the chat. If folks have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Max.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You
Bye.
too.
All right, Pam, you are up for talking about the transportation update.
Right. And you are going to share my slides, David.
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh, I'm on too.
Yeah, you're on too.
So I'm going to take the screen. Let me locate Pam's slides first. I'm sorry. I was blown away by that presentation. It was very detailed. I liked it a lot.
It
Let
was very
me
helpful.
open Pam's slides. Now I'm going to take the screen and put Pam's slides.
Ooh, oh,
We're not there yet.
Yep.
Now we are. I'm going to put Pam's slides on full screen,
right.
slideshow mode.
Yep. Yay. Very good. Okay. Thank you, David.
You bet.
Okay, I'm Pam Van Hine. I'm the PAC recording secretary. I'm also the official PAC representative for the project advisory group. And tonight I'm going to update the PAC on what's happening and what we think will happen at some point. Please, next slide. Okay, what I hope to present tonight, what is Arlington's transportation future? Who are the project team members? What commissions and committees are on the advisory group? Who else is involved? You and all Arlingtonians. What are the upcoming public engagement? What is the PAC homework? The most important thing. And even more important, what are your questions and comments? Next slide. Other way. There we are. Okay. So I got most of the materials for my slides from the project materials, either from the presentation that we had for the advisory group last week or the website. And this one is from their brand new materials that they released with the launching of the program on Monday. And this is their fact sheet. This is only part of the fact sheet, and it's really good, and I highly recommend reading it. And I will share my slides to PAC members afterwards and to anyone else who wants them. All right, so this is a quick overview. Arlington's Transportation Future is an initiative to create a refreshed transportation plan for the county. All right, it will create a safe, equitable, accessible, easy to use, and sustainable transportation network for everybody, address the transportation needs of current and future community members, and guide how we invest in transportation across our community over the coming decades, ensuring that Arlington continues to be a place where people want to live, businesses choose to locate, and visitors come to enjoy. Next slide. Okay, what will the plan include? A vision and goals for future transportation in Arlington, and that's what we're working on right now. And the first set of questions for your homework are related to that. We will eventually get to policies and strategies that will guide future decision making and help us achieve our goals. And this is very important, a guide for prioritizing improvements to Arlington streets based on safety, equity, accessibility, and other needs, and the integration of other documents and not currently part of the master transportation plan. Next slide, please. What would the, and again, there's going to be a little bit of repetition, but some of these points, they are actually really important. And I'll skip some if it's repeating, I hope. What will the plan provide? A cohesive transportation plan that integrates the 6 modal elements of the 2007 Master Transportation Plan. A new framework for transportation planning and decision making that will set clear expectations and develop a shared understanding of priorities and trade-offs. This is something they keep pushing, and this is really important. All right. There's one of the main reasons we're trying to do this is there are lots of existing elements to the master transportation plan. They're done it by different people on different dates, and there's a lot of conflicting information in them and a lot of conflicting priorities in them. And for us to actually have a working transportation policy going forward, we need to fix all that. Anyway, next slide. All right. Again, a new universal framework for transportation decision-making is needed to integrate equity and Vision Zero as foundational components. These did not exist when most of the elements were produced, and they obviously need to go in there now. Set expectations, both for staff and for committees and for everybody. Develop a shared understanding of priorities and trade-offs. Again, that's a key point that they keep making again and again. And if you can do that, then you can simplify future decision making on transportation projects because we will have figured a lot of this stuff out, maybe. Next slide. I like this slide because it's the pretty graphic. The plan will consider Arlington's transportation network as a multimodal system and address mode holistically. Again, it integrates the modal elements that already exist and identify modal priorities and hierarchies for roads. For instance, Columbia Pike seems to be the modal priority is transit. And so cyclists have bike routes on 12th Street and 9th Street instead. And if you haven't seen it, there is an engagement right now on this specific project, and you should give comments. Eric, you had a question?
Yeah, I just noticed, you know, you were talking before about the 6 existing elements, modes, I guess, modal elements before, and now we're looking at 10 of them here,
No comment.
yeah, which kind of is interesting. Just to kind of see they've sort of broken them down into
Yeah.
some new elements, like we could call scooters, you know, micro mobility devices and
Right.
and things like that that
Right.
have essentially been added, that weren't
Right.
there before,
Right.
things of that
Right.
sort.
I think
Yeah,
that's
good
one,
point.
sorry, I think that's one indication of, it's one indication of the age of the existing MTP is that these things have cropped up in the 17 years since the previous MTP was written, like scooters. And some of this is a broadened scope to call out access for people with wheelchairs to have a explicit mentioning of deliveries and freight. I'm gonna shut up, but
But thank you. You're doing a great explanation.
But you're right. I think curb
Yeah.
space is another big element
Right.
that wasn't really studied as much as it is these days.
and in the meantime,
COVID.
since that was written several years ago, we now have a whole new strategy for, you know, demand priced parking, etc. So
Right.
I get some of the inside dope on this because I am in the same department as the folks driving this project. And so, but I'm not going to say too much right now. I want to hear Pam's take on it. So
No, that was very helpful. I like that. Again, yeah, a lot of this stuff just didn't exist when the initial elements were written. Although the bike element is fairly recent, I think it does deal with scooters to some extent, but not in any great detail.
it's the most recent update. It's
Yeah,
6 years
it
old.
is.
5
Yeah, I
or
mean,
6 years old.
ours is from 2011, and it's really out of
Yeah,
date.
yeah.
And you know, there was no Vision Zero, there was no equity plan. We didn't have PUDO issues, we didn't have COVID. There are so many things that have changed, and technology has changed so much. So it's time to figure all this out. So it's final point here: identify priority corridors for future study and other efforts following the adoption of the plan. I'm not sure what priority corridors they might be talking about, but that is interesting. I find most interesting on this is the identifying modal priorities and hierarchies for roads. I think that's going to be a challenge to work that out in this group since it's already a challenge for the county. Next slide, please. Okay. The plan will not create a laundry list of projects. I think they're thinking about the bicycle element here. Or make recommendations beyond the ground plane. Now, the question in the back meeting is, what is a ground plane? What they are talking about is the transportation row. So the street and sidewalks infrastructure and obviously like transit buildings and things would be part of it, but it does not include gondolas, it does not include boats. But it does include bridges. Somebody asked about that, and I asked about trails. It will include trails. So those are both important to us and good to know. It will finally will not develop detailed design guidance or engineering guidance. Part of that is just because it changes too quickly, so it'd be impossible. And if you don't have a extremely nimble plan with details like that in there, every time it changes, you're stuck with the old guidelines, and you don't want that. You want to be able to use the newest information that works. So anyway, that makes sense. Okay, next slide. We're almost done.
Oops, I went too far.
Go
I'm
back.
sorry.
Yep.
I don't know how to go back. There we
You
are.
did. Oh, go
There we
forward.
go.
That's it. All right. This is a slide that I made. What else do we know? The plan will replace existing individual MTP elements by the time this project is done, assuming that we are successful. However, and this was a question that Mike Hanna raised, a possible later recommendation might be to include parts of some of the MTP elements considered essential, such as the maps. The big point, the row will not grow. So we need to share the space, and we have to figure out how to do that equitably. And this is a very long-term project. We are starting now with visioning. In winter and spring, we're going to get into priorities. Fall, we're getting into some of the nitty-gritty, and by 2026, there should be a final plan going to the board. And throughout this whole process, there will be significant community engagement. Next slide. I'm going to go through the next few very quickly. This is the project team, the transportation staff. You know all of these people. The one person that you may not be familiar with is Kristen Calkins. She is relatively new. She is young and enthusiastic, and she's doing a great job. She's been very involved with the Barcroft project as well. So Mike and I have been working with her already. Next slide, please. Who are the consultants? Lots of consultants. Kimley Horn, we know Kimley Horn very well. They work with VDOT on Route 1. They were involved with the failed Alexandria Arena project. And they were involved with the Crystal City Sector Plan back when that was being done. So they've been a lot of county involvement in a lot of Northern Virginia. They know what they're doing. Foursquare, that is the same group that is helping ACCS redo their strategic plan. So we heard from them last month. So we're somewhat familiar with them. I am not familiar with neo-niche strategies or Avid Core, but I assume I will know more about them over time. Next slide. Advisory group members. Okay, there are 14 different committees and commissions on the advisory group. Half of them are transportation, if you count them all up. Chris Ladd is the chair, which is terrific, wonderful. He has a great background. The TAC and the PAC are all on it. The Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission is on it, and Transportation Commission has 2 members. So it's heavily, purely transportation people. But there's other groups that we work with all the time, like C2E2, Commission on Aging, the DAC, Forestry and Natural Resources Commission, Parks and Rec, and the Planning Commission. So those are all good people that we usually work with. don't always agree with them, but we work with them on a regular basis. We know how to do that. The groups we don't usually work with are the Arlington Neighborhoods Advisory Committee, but they have some very important documents that we need to address because they talk about sidewalks, among other things. The Economic Development Commission, which would involve business, and so that's where we would probably get into the food study and other issues, and then the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Committee to make sure that the finances are in order. The BAC is well supported on this. Obviously, Chris Slatt has been involved with the BAC. Mike Hanna is the BAC representative. Uh, Jillian is the representative for the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Committee. Aaron Schutz is on the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission, as well as the BAC. So that's very good. And for the PAC, you just have me. But overall,
And
it's good representation, a lot of support for active and alternative transportation. So that's great. Any
and
questions on that?
and Eric Malpelli as your backup.
Right. Is my unofficial backup. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you
Well,
all
you're
the
pretty, as you, Pam, you're pretty good with all your experience. So you're like a good, solid person, even if it's only
Sometimes.
you. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, we have a couple. Okay, a couple things, different slides on public engagement. This lists all of the public engagement activities, and the next one just says the in-person ones. And so I won't cover the in-person ones here because it's going to be on the next slide. Online tools on the website, and I will share all this information later when I send a follow-up message. There's lots of information on the web page. There is an online survey and even better, an interactive comment map. We love interactive comment maps. So you can put your comments all over the map. Both of those are due November 15th. And then they have, now that it has launched, they have fact sheets and all this other stuff that is on there or coming out soon. One of the things that I thought was most interesting is doing these listening sessions. As you know, the Department of Transportation and so many other groups in Arlington are constantly sending out these public engagements, online public engagements. And they say repeatedly that it's only certain groups of people who respond, mainly people like me. Older people, homeowners, they're not catching a lot of minorities. They're not catching the full realm of the population of Arlington, both for neighborhoods and everything else. So they really want to reach some of these other people who aren't typical responders to the usual public engagement. And one of the discussions we had at our meeting was some ways to do that. And the TAC representative is just amazing and seems to know how to do a lot of this stuff. And she was talking about the importance of going to churches to get those populations. And it was good. We'll see how that goes. Next slide.
Can I just
Yeah, sure.
mention something?
Of course.
Going back to, it's good they're going to have the listening sessions, but essentially, if we didn't have you as a resource, kind of sending out a lot of the things that you receive, if you don't sign up for all the right lists, you don't get the information. So you kind of have to search for it to get it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not really searching for it, it doesn't really come to you. So it's good that
And even,
they're looking at other ways to engage here.
And even if you are theoretically engaged in everything, I had no idea that the county was doing this Columbia Pike bike survey. And it's really important and it's due on Sunday. And the only reason I found it, I was looking for something else on the Susno site, which wasn't there, but there was this bike project. It's like, oh, this is really important. So I posted that one. So if any of you who bike or care about biking should make sure you do that. And next slide. Okay, these are the in-person public engagements. There's two big open houses. Those are going to be the main events. The first one is coming up on October 16th, 3 to 7 in the Central Library. The next one, October 26th on a Saturday, 10 to 1. There are a bunch of pop-up events. If any of them happen to be close to you or you care to go, please go to one of them. I will be going to the Crystal City Water Park one. I'm possibly going to go to the Central Library open house. There's also a bunch of, I assume that these are non-publicized pop-up events. They can't canvassing events. They are at like transit centers and grocery stores and farmers markets and other meeting places where you find people. So I don't think they want to publicize them ahead of time because they want to just catch people who are normally going to be there. That's a good idea as well. And now we move on to the important stuff. Two more slides. All right, this is your homework. And again, I will put this out to all PAC members tomorrow with detailed instructions. Now, I am going to post these questions through a Google Docs tomorrow. I will give all PAC members editing privileges to add their comments. And I will encourage you to start making comments on these questions. If you're not comfortable using Google Docs, I will encourage you to email me your comments. And the good news is these comments are due on November 19th, and we will be having another PAC meeting on November 15th, probably jointly with the BAC, with the possibility of VDOT coming, maybe. But we can further refine our comments and finalize them at that meeting, and then we can get them out. So these are the 4 questions. Do we have any time to discuss them, or should we move on to other things?
I think we want to try and at least catch up with a few other things. We're running about 10 minutes behind right now.
Okay.
And I know we're going to talk about recruitment and the comfort map. So I think
that's fine.
Okay.
And we never had we didn't have 5 people, so we're not going to be doing anything that requires stuff. The one question I really don't understand is the last one. What does PAC see as opportunities for transportation? I'm not sure what that means. I may ask one of the staff people, what does this mean? The others are fairly obvious, and the first one's really easy. But anyway, thank you all. Oh, next slide, final slide. I want to know your questions and comments, and I thank you for having me serve as your representative and for giving you this presentation and for your support. The end.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling those together and sharing them. Yes.
Oops.
Thank you.
When's the joint meeting, Pam, that you mentioned? Because I was going to put it on my calendar. The joint.
Probably on the regular PAC meeting date, which is the November.
The 13th, I guess.
I think it's the 13th. The 15th is Friday, yeah.
Good. Okay,
yeah,
very good.
13th, right. Good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I need to get back in touch with Cynthia because she apparently has been in touch with VDOT and they said they may be ready to come back in November, which would be great. Okay.
All right. Well,
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Oh, that was great, Pam. You did a great job. I will be at the open house at Central Library next week.
Okay.
Not for the entire 4 hours, because there's also an open house at the Arlington National Cemetery about their plans that I want to go to, and that's in the earlier afternoon. That affects our Arlington Memorial Trail project. But that was a great job, Pam.
Yeah. Thank you.
I will share with you all a comment I made to my colleagues who are leading the transportation plan effort. And I think Pam got it just right. Some other people who I heard talking about this transportation plan seem to miss some aspects of it, that it's staged and it's a process, and that at this point it's generating ideas, getting all the content up for discussion, and not precluding or foreclosing outcomes. I think that was really important. And another is that all the work that's been done already in things like the bike element and the ped element and the existing MTP is not going to be lost. Those are all the starting points of this plan. So the list of 120 capital projects in the bike element are not going to be lost. And many of those are already CIP projects. They're not just a list of wishes anymore. They're actual things that are in, of course, various stages of development. So I have a lot of faith in this plan. The planning I've been involved with before has never benefited from such a roster of heavy hitting consultants. I mean, we did the bike
Yeah.
element on the, basically a bake sale, with
Right.
no official support from the outside. It was mostly Rich Viola and a committee of helpers, citizen helpers like you all, who
Yep.
put it together on an absolute shoestring. So this is going to be fun to be part of a real kind of full-bodied planning effort. The kind of effort that the Public Spaces Master Plan benefited from a few years ago, that the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan benefited from in the last very few years. So look forward to a lot of action, a lot of engagement, a lot of opportunities to weigh in, and some evolution as it moves along.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thanks.
Well said.
With that, let's move on to the next item, which is developing a PAC membership brochure for recruitment. And David, maybe if you can expound a little bit on your thoughts that you started, I guess, when you introduced yourself. That
Can
would
I
be
just
good.
roll the tape and play that 2 minutes again? That was an idea that we've been kicking around, and Mary and I kicked around a bit. I like this group a lot. I don't try to hide it. I think you all are great. And even the folks who aren't here, you do a tremendous job. And in the face of some of the interactions we've had with other staff members like Nate Graham and Christine Sherman, and I lobby for sort of a status for this group as people who have been doing this for a long time. They're officially recognized by the manager's office to play a role in having some oversight, everything pedestrian, and for the bike people, everything bike. And it's different it's a different level of dedication, I would say, than folks who show up at their neighborhood elementary school to talk about a project that's popping up on the corner over there. No, you guys are looking across the county, long term, and as I said earlier in this meeting, with the benefit, if you will, of being a bit inside the bubble and having access to the manager and having regular access to staff from all across the county administration. And we haven't done a great job of selling that sort of involvement to new people. And I guess the idea I had in the last couple of weeks is, well, why don't we have the PAC members themselves try to craft this message? And then Mary said, well, it's like that scene from, The Sound of Music. I've got some curtains. Well, Mary says, I can do some graphic design, and Lauren's done this. Mary and Lauren have been, doing walkabout brochures and all sorts of engagement and outreach materials for years. Well, why don't we develop a brochure? We can get it printed. I don't think that's a hurdle. And then we have something to hand out at outreach events and at engagement events and at walkabouts and at light giveaways, at PTA meetings, whatever. People have something in their hands. Oh yeah, well I do have a concern, or I do have an interest, or I've had some experience, or I've had a scary experience. I'd like to do something about it.
I would hope, and sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But I would hope also in this day and age, paper is not used as much as it used to be, carrying paper around. So hopefully this also becomes a messaging item that could flash up on the county website when you log in every once in a while, or
I think that's
kind of like a car-free diet or something like that. I mean, certainly it's not on the same scale as something like that, but at least have ways that we, once this is developed, that we want to use it to get folks' attention. Because
I agree with you.
Even when people, even on a pop-up table, if you have like 20 items on the table, sometimes people just grab them. They're not even looking, they may look at them later. They may just grab them for what it's worth and then toss them later. So it's important till we find ways, once we develop this, I guess, to just kind of get it on people's radar screen is my feeling.
I agree with that entirely. So rather than just listening to me blab, do you want to actually start sort of an organized conversation and come up with some ideas and a list and then we can take it away and put some order to it? I mean, those were my ideas about why I think this group could generate more interest about with people who don't even know the PAC exists.
Well, I guess maybe I'd like to ask as well, Mary and Lauren, because you put out information to get to pull people in to events and things like that. What are some of the things us as being pedestrian focused and kind of understand what we're sort of the realm that we're working in, but not so much how to draw people in. What are some of the things that we may want to start with?
I mean, I see you all not as being into this to like influence things and access things as much as like you care about your community, and like I see it more as an altruistic reason, like that you want to do good, that you care about these issues, that you're willing to like do the work. And I so I don't know how you frame that, but it's like it gives Arlington like a really like small town feel or an intimate feel. And especially because it's like a small group of people who are involved in all these groups. Like Eric, you're on two of them. Like that. So, and that Pam goes to like so many site plan meetings. So it's like a dedication thing and like you have to love Arlington to want to do this and think that you like you're proud to live here and want to make it better.
Right. I mean, when I think about why I started coming to meetings in the first place, and that was really for the back. Now, who knows, close to 30 years ago, so maybe more than that. Um, really had to do with I was commuting into Georgetown for work, I guess, originally, and had to go through Roslyn Circle, and that's the area where I mean, it still is terrible that when you're crossing, and I think actually at one point it got better. I think the signaling has gotten worse, but basically crossing North Lynn Street, I guess it's North Lynn, along, moving along the Custis Trail there. You have the cars that come up the ramp, and they basically can turn right across the roadway, and there've been I guess many close calls and probably many accidents as well, or I should say crashes over time. And to me, I don't believe that it's ever really been solved, but that's what kind of got me motivated to start in the first place. So I mean, it was kind of events like that, something that you pass through daily, and you see it as a problem. So
Isn't that funny that Cynthia has said exactly that same spot? That did you ever hear her say that on her commute she had to go through that same intersection and got so angry or that she looked for the BAC and found it. So like that one intersection has really caused a lot of
brought a lot of people
engagement.
in, yes.
Activism.
Mhm.
But I, like many people, first came to the PAC, as Lauren knows, as to complain. My nemesis is the intersection of 18th and Eads, and it's no better than it ever was. I had been involved with Lauren doing the walkabouts in our neighborhood. And I said, how do I fix this? And she said, go to the PAC. I said, okay. So I went to the PAC in 2014 and I spent an hour just complaining. And people listened to me. They were very patient. And John, who is currently a board member, John Beistat, he had to wait for me to finish before he could talk. But over time, I actually learned what the PAC did. I kept coming for whatever reason,
So,
and I found that it was really valuable. But it took me a long time to really appreciate that it was about advocacy and supporting your community and getting comfortable with my role. But first off, I just came to complain, and I think a lot of people do that.
well,
And what happens a lot of times is they'll come, they'll complain, they don't get an immediate answer, and they leave, and they never come back. So that's a different issue that we have to deal with.
right. But is that something, is that a draw in itself? Say, kind of say, do you have an issue? Do you have something in your daily commute, in your walk, in your neighborhood that you see often and you have to deal with it often? Do you want to be more involved to help address these things on a community level and other places throughout the county? Maybe, something in that nature. But
So
anyway,
Yeah,
I'm going to let Lauren talk
yeah,
next because
yeah.
her hand's up.
I was just going to say, I see it as two things. It's one, if you're already doing engagement, it's a tool, because people a lot of times when you are at a table or when you're at an event and they know that you might have some knowledge or sway or authority or whatever, that people will, as we all know, start to tell us their issues. So to not only say come to the PAC, but to have this in your hand or to have a link to this particular, one pager or whatever it's going to be, is a tool for us. It also helps deflect, so you're not spending a half an hour speaking to one person when there are 20 other people who also need your attention. Secondly, I think the new MTP is a hook, because that is 2007, ironically, is when I started with Walk Arlington the first time, but I got involved because I was horrified on Washington Boulevard with a kid in a stroller in 2000, 2001, and that's when I went to my first meeting. So it's something where you kind of, whether or not you get immediate satisfaction, you understand the value of the work that's being done. So I think drawing people in to even an initial meeting and then having it be, and not only do you get this, wait, there's more, the MTP, you get to weigh in on that as well. I think those two things offer a lot of value. By the same token, people are not seeking out meetings. I mean, I'm not, I'm not going to go to a meeting every night of the week. And a lot of the people who usually come to meetings or who feel their voice should be heard are the same ones who are doing the PTA or the Civics Association or the whatever. But that's why I think going to where those people live, and maybe there are people who attend those meetings who aren't on the front lines, they're kind of there, but they're already kind of, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could do a meeting once a month, or maybe I could, and then you have these inroads, no pun intended, in sidewalks. And also you can hit with the civic association and the PTAs specifically, you can hit neighborhoods that are underrepresented. So I think there's like a double benefit in reaching out that way. So those are my thoughts. And I do think the idea of having paper as well as an online, something that could be, it could be part of the Walk Arlington newsletter. It could be something that comes up as a slide on the Walk Arlington website. Not that everyone knows what Walk Arlington is either, but it's the same, it's the same. The more people see it, the redundancy and the recency, I think will help generate interest.
We could have a flyer too, because then we can do the QR code. And I've done that with a lot of walks, like posted on the trail, posted at the library. Like that can help, like hang it up somewhere where people are present.
Sounds good. I see Eric Malpelli has his hand up.
Yeah, I think this is a good, important conversation. So a few thoughts from me about ways to sort of market market us. I think this committee, it's a good way to get sort of the inside scoop of what's happening on a broad range of issues, right? It's pedestrian focused, but there are a lot of closely related, interconnected issues, right? Public transit, biking, housing, urbanism in general. And a lot of what I learn here is applicable just as much sort of in those domains as in the narrow pedestrian one. And something I think we have to our advantage is it is a commitment, but it's a manageable commitment. You know, one meeting a month. There's not a stack of stuff to review for you know, like a planning commission meeting, something. So it's a way to be involved tangibly in a manageable way. And I like what I'm hearing in terms of like specific types of groups to reach out to. You know, there are a lot of kids who walk to schools in Arlington, right? So those PTAs, to the civic associations. You know, if we went from having membership of, you know, 0.001% of walkers in Arlington to 0.00, you know, 3, right? It would really get us a sustainable number. Like you only need a few. So this is a good conversation. Thanks.
I mean, even right there, if I have kids at WNL and Kenmore and Watt, like they're both very challenging for active transportation for kids, especially Kenmore. So right there might be people interested in like these communities I'm in outside of work.
Right. I'm interested in putting John Armstrong on the spot a little bit because, John, I remember when you first came to PAC, you were upset about how the sidewalks were being used and people parking on the sidewalks and the police unresponsive to trying to keep them clear. You're off the screen and your mic is muted. I don't know if you're still here, but I'd be interested to know if you have anything to add. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm actually. We just finished a practice that I'm
You're monitoring sidewalks.
I'm on the campus in Marymount, which I don't know when this place was designed, but it could use some improvements.
You are being a pedestrian.
No, David. Yeah, I guess before I do have to drop, but like I said during the introduction, I just had an interest in walkability, and then my neighbor who was on the transportation committee was like, "Oh, did you know there's a pedestrian committee?" And I didn't really have a hot button issue at the time. Over the years, though, I was very vocal about some of my complaints about some of the things you just raised in terms of parking on the sidewalks and blocking the path, and I found personally I benefit from. I've learned so much at the PAC. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe in our outreach we look at kids at George Mason, the graduate schools, and maybe we go into the schools as it was suggested here to the PTAs and just put the call out that we need people from all walks of life, and maybe we focus on get together a list of some of these places, PTAs, grad schools, employers, and somehow spread the word to those listservs and see if we can get some folks who may have hot button issues, just general interests. But with that, I'll sort of sign off. Got to go back on mute.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Eric Malpelli's hand is still up. I don't know whether that's there you go. Artifact of the earlier moment.
But that's a good way maybe to reach out to these groups and at least say we're looking for representatives, members, and then with whatever it is that we develop, it's something that we can easily share that, and hopefully they can share that with their membership. So and even if they want us to speak there or to draw to come, then we can probably do that as well. But at least get it started, get it on the radar screen of the folks that share with their members.
Well, that was great. I've took a bunch of notes, and I think I'll bubble them down into some kind of a list or some bullets and pass it around and see if we can't put some text together. And but I think it's a good idea to hear from all the people who are on the committee about the value you find in doing this, because you keep coming back. So that's good. Thank you very much.
But it's interesting. So I guess it's evenly split between being angry about something and just sort of kind of interested or curious or wanting to learn more. Eric, I don't think you were angry, or it didn't sound like something specific.
Well, as an engineer, I like to solve problems, so it was a problem that needed solving.
But other Eric, I mean, because Eric Malpelli, I think he said like, I keep forgetting there are two Erics. There used to be three. So at least
That's right.
There used to be two Goodmans too.
Yes.
But like you said about Lynn,
Not angry Eric.
You weren't angry, Eric M. You
just were angrier is the other Eric will say.
Right.
No, and I mean, I think in the big picture, things are, much better in Arlington than 99% of other places in the country. And it's a matter of building from the areas of amazing strength in certain parts of Arlington to areas of where it's not, like where I am on Langston Boulevard, but still could be worse. Maybe that's my attitude.
That's a good tagline. Could be worse.
Well,
make it better.
Oh dear.
we can always, and like you said about Arlington, we can note that Arlington is an award-winning area, but there's still room for improvement.
Yeah, that's what I think is another hook. Like, because my husband is like, he has a mechanical engineering like undergraduate degree. Like, he loves this kind of stuff. So people in certain fields gravitate to these kinds of topics and interests and really like to get into specifics. So like that's another group of people. Well, like John was saying with grad schools, it's people who are upset maybe, or people who are really interested in certain types of issues or have certain types of brains that I don't know what that is, but I know what I mean. I'm just not articulating it well. Like,
and at the other end of the spectrum, too, seniors, the 8 to 80 thing, and Arlington, there's so many between 55 plus and people who are able to retire at 55, and those people like Arlington Neighborhood Village. There's such a wealth of knowledge and then time commitment that people actually suddenly have. They're sharp. They have experience. They care about their community. They want to stay here. Yeah. They have an incentive to weigh in, and it's from a different angle than like the grad student, or even if it's a school-based young parent, whatever. So to get all that represented, and churches and faith-based communities also are another option to reach out to strategically.
Yeah, I don't think we need to recruit more old people. Half of our membership is old white people, and we've always had a lot of old people on it.
Well, one thing I know that when a long time ago, when I was the chair of this committee the first time, there was a thought to bring in somebody from the healthcare direction as well, and we actually did have a doctor.
We had a doctor for a while, yeah.
Yeah, who actually was he was a very busy person, but every once in a while he did connect. And it is easier for people to connect through the virtual process than it was before, so that should make it.
That's another incentive.
What are the benefits?
But we may also want to try and sort of focus on the healthy side of things, I mean, we're all pedestrians, and walking is one of the healthiest things that you can do if you don't get yourself hit by a car crossing the street.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably move on with a few more things. We have a comfort map discussion. I wanted to leave enough room to talk about that a little bit. And if Mary, if you have any other updates on any things that may be happening over the next couple months as well.
Okay. Well, I did make like a little PowerPoint about the comfort map.
Sure.
So let me see. I have it open, and then I'm definitely interested. Pam sent me some very good feedback, which I looked at and I haven't gotten to act on yet. So let me see if this works. I'm in my slides, and it says if I click on present in Teams, I will start presenting. Let's see if that'll work.
You got it.
Can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, so since it's just us, I'll be informal. I didn't know how many people would be here. Not that just us. So yes, as you know, Brian Shelton had presented about this map in June when we had that joint meeting at Longbridge Aquatic Center, just like to say, this is what we're thinking of doing. We're getting started on it. So now we've done it. And we're in the final stages of trying to get it to the printer. So I can just talk a little bit about the process again and what's new, and then save time if anybody has thoughts or questions. So here's the old map. So this is the 2022 Bike Comfort Map, and it was created in the style of like the first comfort map, which I think David was involved in or had some knowledge of in 2015. So the old map was crowdsourced. It was more because we didn't have as much data as we have now. So it was really just people looking at different places to ride and saying where they thought they felt safe or where there were issues. So this was like, and has been a wonderful map and been very popular and well liked. And so the way the change happened, or the idea to change the map came about, is that I went to the Vision Zero interdepartmental stakeholders meeting many months ago. And I mentioned in one of our roundtable updates that we would be updating the comfort map. And so this was what sparked the new idea, and which came from Christine Baker, of like, well, why don't we do a data-driven map? And she, was listing all the different data we now have through so many different programs that are being collected, like speed data, information on slope. We have behavioral complaints that are in the Report a Problem platform or through Vision Zero surveys. There's a pavement condition index, land use designations, all kinds of information now on bicycle infrastructure we have. So how could we harness all this, which is already being created, to make a map, a comfort map that's more relying on data and consistently applying that data in different like criteria across all the streets in Arlington. So I thought this was a wonderful idea. So I met with Brian Shelton and Matthew Holden, who's in TE&O. He's, I think his title is Traffic Database Analyst. And as you know, Brian is the active transportation planner who works with David. So we started meeting and just fleshing out how this might happen. So the way we started the process is we researched all these other bike maps from different jurisdictions. So we looked at the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency's Bicycle Comfort Index methodology, which turned out to be our favorite. Like, we really liked the factors they considered and how they define bicycle comfort. And then we looked at the Mineta Transportation Institute's level of traffic stress document that I think a lot of people know that like has different levels of traffic stress that will indicate how safe you feel on a bike riding with cars. So that's kind of a like seminal volume on that. So we were interested in that. And then I looked at different platinum level bicycle friendly communities to see like what kind of bike maps they had. And did they have like, what were they doing? And just other like big cities, different places. And really like the platinum communities, a lot of them didn't have these sorts of maps exactly. They just had straight bike maps. And Boston had a good map. And then I liked one from the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, a GIS map they have. So all these ideas kind of gelled. And we had a lot of discussions. And then this is ultimately what we came up with after like several iterations of like what factors and what data would influence the comfort map and the scores. So it's 3 subscores. And when you may remember when I presented it at that joint, or when Brian presented it, people gave comments that like it sounds too complicated and all that. But I think I love it and I think it works and it makes sense to me. So the context subscore is about like all these different factors that we have data for. The land use, is it a mixed use neighborhood? Is it residential? Is it commercial, industrial? Because that would affect probably the traffic and just how much activity there is where you'd be riding your bike. Pavement quality, using the pavement condition index, are there potholes? Is it really smooth? Are there other issues? And all of the pavement condition index, everything has a score. So we could track that. Behavioral violations, as I mentioned that, like, do people block the bike lane? Are there reports of that? Are there other factors that might make it your ride less comfortable? Then the level of bike traffic stress, we're able to look at that. And that has a whole lot of subcategories within it that aren't here. Presence of heavy vehicles is the bus. Because like, as you know, as we all know, if you're riding your bike in the lane and the bus stops, then that kind of slows you down or affects your ride and your feelings of comfort, even though the bus is a good thing. So then traffic subscore was all about things like how many travel lanes are there, what's traffic control, and the idea that, for instance, if it's something like a 4-way stop, that would be more stressful because it's not always clear whose turn it is. And if you're on a bike, having to stop, you'd ride much more smoothly if you just kind of kept going instead of having to stop. So it's a factor like that. And then 85th percentile speed is the idea of like, how fast are the cars around you truly traveling and how does that affect your experience on a bike? And then bicycle infrastructure is looking at, because we have all this information, are there bicycle facilities on the road and also at intersections, like places that, the 2-stage turn box, or a place where the cyclists can wait the bike box at the in front of cars so that you're more visible. Does this infrastructure exist? And on trails, the idea of, is it a fair weather crossing that if it floods, if it poured, you can't ride your bike across because you'd be underwater. So these were the things that we thought were significant. They're the kind of factors that other places and other jurisdictions thought were important too when they made maps like this. So we crunched all those numbers together, and Matthew did on his GIS map that he created, and then came up with scores for all the streets in Arlington that tells like the bicycle comfort index level, the score. And so what's different on the new map though, I'm trying to keep myself moving. I'm taking longer than I thought because I know we're on a time crunch. So we had gotten feedback on the old map that calling things easy, medium, challenging wasn't exactly clear, and it could sound like you're talking about like physical effort. So for instance, like challenging could mean that it's physically harder to ride somewhere, like maybe a hill. And that didn't seem to be always the best language. And that made sense. So we changed the names to most comfortable, less comfortable, not recommended, because I think the old map says something. Oh, this is the new map. The old map said like use caution. And it's like, no, like we don't want you to ride there. We want you to avoid it if you're not experienced, especially because it may not be the safest or the most comfortable. So we just changed it to not recommend it. And then major traffic thoroughfare we changed, actually because Dana Bress had said we had labeled the old map prohibited, and a lot of those streets technically were not prohibited, so that was incorrect. So we changed that to just say like, you don't want to ride your bike on a highway. And in most cases, it is prohibited. So that changed. We also changed the colors because we'd gotten feedback on the old map that people with color blindness couldn't always distinguish the colors. So we put a lot of thought into having better colors and had someone look at it a couple times to see that we got it right. And we also learned that if you do a grayscale map on your website, people who have color blindness, since they're all different types, probably will be able to see the grayscale map if they can't see the printed color map. So I feel like we addressed that as best as we could. And so you also notice on the map that now every level, as I said, has a numerical score associated with that color and that level. Like, this is why we think this street is most comfortable or less. So that's new. That's the big change, the numbers. And so, yes, I already went over this. What's new? The new names, the numerical scores, the colors are improved. We added scooter corral symbols now because those are new. So they're all over the map. And we went through many iterations of a hill symbol internally and came up with one that, because the old one people said was hard to see. So now we ended up, after